So the price of Bitcoin has pumped actually nearly 60% since the height of the last bull cycle. But what does that mean? Is this the end phase of BTC's price? Is it closer to the beginning? The fact is we have a lot of predictions out there that would suggest this year and in the near future, the price of BTC is going to reach $150,000, $200,000, $250,000. And then even further along, perhaps by 2030, for example, $750,000 on the low end, or even as high as $1.5 million in the bullish scenario. And I'm certainly not making this up either, because despite kind of the ho-hum market performance that we've been seeing, some of the biggest and most reputable analysts in this space are throwing out some pretty encouraging predictions as far as where the price of Bitcoin, BTC, is going to go in 2025 and 2026. And most importantly, these guys are not throwing these numbers around casually. They've got serious reasons and serious analysis behind their calls. Let's check them out. So we kick things off here with Cathie Wood, the CEO, of course, of ARK Invest, really one of Bitcoin's earliest and most vocal institutional believers. She's kind of right up there, I would say, perhaps behind, but very close to the likes of Michael Saylor in terms of being an evangelist and really a proponent of Bitcoin. Her latest BTC prediction is pretty massive.
You've talked for a long time about Bitcoin getting to $500,000 a coin, depending on the time frame. I think you were hoping for it to be there now. We are back up over $100,000 now. We're about $103,000. To the extent you have a thesis about this, what is it at this point, and what would your new target be?
Yes. So we have always had a 2030 target, the base case in the 700 to 750,000 range, the bull case in the $1.5 million range. David Puel, our analyst and our on-chain analyst, put that piece out recently. And you can see the building blocks, how much share we expect Bitcoin to either take from gold or grow that store of value market. Institutions moving in, and they've barely moved in. We have 1 million more coins, roughly, to be minted ever, and institutions are just testing the waters right now. And then there's the emerging market use case as well. So we think we have miles to go. Yes.
So her base case is between $700,000 and $750,000. The bull case scenario for her shoots all the way up to $1.5 million per Bitcoin. And she's basing this on 3 core drivers primarily. Number 1, Bitcoin replacing gold as a store of value. Number 2, a surge in institutional adoption. And number 3, emerging markets relying on Bitcoin for financial stability. Next up, let's consider what Charles Hoskinson has to say. He is, of course, the founder of Cardano. Charles typically does not usually toss out wild predictions, but that being said, this time he certainly didn't hold back.
What ends up happening is crypto benefits in the long term, because geopolitically what's happening is we're moving from a rules-based international order to a great powers conflict. Now, we're kind of young, so we spent our entire adult lives under a rules-based international order, but our parents and grandparents, they lived under great powers conflict. It was the United States and the Soviet Union going at it. So it didn't matter what the trade deal was. It didn't matter what the rule law was. If the Soviet Union wanted to do something or US wanted to do something, they just do it. And now we go back to great powers conflict. If Russia wants to invade Ukraine, it invades Ukraine. If China wants to invade Taiwan, it's going to do that. So treaties don't really work so well, and global business doesn't really work so well there. So your only option for globalization is crypto. If you want to do business with countries the United States doesn't like, or Russia doesn't like, or China doesn't like, in a global commons, you can no longer do that through treaty organizations or legacy banks or things. You can only do that through crypto.
Just to get back to kind of where we currently are, you don't think we're heading towards another crypto winter at all?
No. I think Bitcoin will be over 250,000 by the end of this year or next year.
What's going to drive that, do you think?
What'll happen is that the tariff stuff will be a dud, and then people will realize that the world is willing to negotiate. And it's really just U.S. versus China, and a lot of people will side with us, some people side with China. The markets will stabilize a little bit, and they'll get used to the new normal.
So Hoskinson is eyeing $250,000 per Bitcoin. driven not by technical analysis, but by what he calls global realignment. It's actually a pretty interesting argument. He suggests that as the world shifts globally from peaceful trade to what he calls great powers conflict, he believes that crypto becomes the only trustless way to do business globally. And I think actually at macro level, what he's saying sounds very logical. It makes a lot of sense. Next up, we have Adam Back. And if you know that name, then you've been around this space probably for a while. You know that he is a true Bitcoin OG. He's actually mentioned in Satoshi's white paper, so that's pretty much as OG as it gets. And he's got a pretty bold take on why he feels Bitcoin is undervalued right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to bear in mind I'm one of the perma bulls, so I'm always astounded that Bitcoin is as cheap as it is. And so I think one of the debates at the moment is the diminishing returns theory. So if you look at the previous 2 or 3 halvings, the percentage increase has gone down. But I think that is partly because of the COVID and the supply chains and the money printing and the economic effects of that, right? I think the last halving was kind of cut short by that a bit. And, the fact that we had an end of epoch new all-time high, 73.5 just before the halving, it's kind of, I viewed as a kind of confirmation that, it would have gone higher if not for all of those headwinds. And so, I think it's probably incorrect to draw too many inferences from the last cycle. And so, if you take that out, I think that there's a lot of positive news that, $100,000 is way too cheap. And so I expect we'll end the year much higher. And, we get between 500,000 and a minimum and a million during this cycle. So we'll see.
As you heard, Adam is calling for $500,000 to $1 million per BTC this cycle. And you may think that's a little bit optimistic, but he feels that last cycle's peak was cut short by factors like COVID, money printing. But this time around, as he sees it, we have major adoption, we have increasing scarcity, we have growing network effects. And personally, while I feel he's being a little bit hyperbolic here, perhaps intentionally so, certainly the arguments that he makes and the reasoning are pretty convincing. Last but not least here, we want to hear from Tom Lee. He is the CIO of Fundstrat. They are known for making bold calls that, by the way, very often hit the mark. And here's where Tom thinks the price of BTC is going to go.
Yeah, I think it's consolidating. It makes sense. Bitcoin is responding to global liquidity, which is moving up, and I think anticipating a dovish Fed next year, so that's a tailwind for Bitcoin. But, Bitwise has a great stat. 95% of all Bitcoin's been mined, but 95% of the world doesn't own Bitcoin. So I just think that there's still a huge demand versus supply imbalance, meaning there's a lot more potential buyers of Bitcoin over the next 10 years. And so I think there's a lot of upside into year end.
Into your 150 target.
Yeah, 150, maybe 200, even 250 this year.
What? 150 to 200 to even 250. And what's you don't have a terminal price on that, do you?
Well, it's I think at a minimum it should have the same network value as gold. Mm-hmm. And if you look at above ground gold, it's probably 23 trillion. So that would be 1.2 million for Bitcoin. But I think Bitcoin is more valuable than gold. So gold. Bitcoin could be 2 million, 3 million long term. Even higher.
So Tom feels that very realistically, we're going to see $150,000 to $250,000 by year end. But in the longer term, he says that Bitcoin could easily hit $1.2 million. That would, if you do the math, means that it would match gold's market cap. And then, of course, if Bitcoin ends up being more valuable than gold in its totality, the ceiling shoots up to $2 million, $3 million, and possibly beyond. As a space, cryptocurrency is, of course, incredibly volatile. So Tom's position is that even if we do get a temporary correction, there is a plan in place and a price zone to watch.
We're pretty early in this halving cycle. So to me, I think Bitcoin in the near term, again, our technician thinks 70,000 is where we can sort of make a stand. Means you're getting a big opportunity because I think Bitcoin's going to be one of the best performing assets.
So, but you still think it goes all the way down to 70,000, or you think that's the floor, in which case you would still buy at this price?
Yeah, so there's Fibonacci's. So one level would be 70.
Let's say that again.
There's retracement levels. So
Yes.
you pull back from where you rallied.
Right.
So 70 is one level. It could go to as low as the 50s. But that's, again, not a new level. It's just where it touches before it begins to rally again.
Okay, let me ask you a different question. For those folks who are watching who are not in Bitcoin or are thinking about buying Bitcoin at these prices, are you saying that this is a fair and good price to get in, or are you saying wait because you think it's going farther down?
You know, Bitcoin is something you need to be long-term focused. I don't think anyone's going to lose money buying here at 90. If they're trying to time this, maybe they'll get lucky and it goes to 70. But to me, Bitcoin could be significantly higher this year, you know, maybe 200, 250. So I think 90 is still a good entry point.
Tom believes that we're very early in the halving cycle, and even if Bitcoin dips, let's say, to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, he sees that as accumulation territory. His message is very clear, and he shares this with the other big proponents here that we featured in the video, the big evangelists of crypto and Bitcoin. The message is that BTC is a long-term hold.